Hey, good morning, traders. TG Watkins here. It is December 29th. Today is the last day of trading for 2023. So yeah, let's see if the market's getting a little bit air let now, but that makes sense. We've been talking about this, looking for it for a few days, and it's finally starting to arrive. We'll show you some things to note and how that has been situating itself. All right. Also, remember, new year, new market. We've got 2024 coming up, and want to make sure that you guys understand or get these deals that we have going. It's going to be new 24 is going to be the code, and get basically 30% off a whole bunch of stuff that we have. So head over to simplertrading.com and go see what you need. Otherwise, talk to our customer support, and they'll hook you up with a bunch of good deals and packages. And if you guys want the Moxie Indicator, we're running a special on that, along with some of the classes. And I've got a new class that I'm working on right now since the market's really finally starting to get into gear. And we are starting to see a broad-based support of the market. It's not just the Magnificent Seven anymore. So let's kind of dive in. I'll show you a few of those things. And if we look here, as far as the breadth indicators, this is another big thing that I've been talking about. Obviously, the 20-day breadth has been huge and just went straight up. It's been holding there for a while, but we could be seeing some negative divergence here. We're starting to see fewer names stay elevated. Of course, I do think that they are, some names are staying up because I think that there are some tax implications that are happening that some, big institutions and traders probably want to defer their taxes until 2024. So I think for that reason, be a little bit careful at the beginning of the year and see if we do get a pullback. Bottom line for me is that this market's been straight up for 2 months, and everything's pegged to the upside, and there's just kind of no more room to go up. And so we need to have things cycle back down, flag, pull back, just something to provide more opportunity. And I think when that happens, I do think we're going to see a pretty good 2024. So I'm pretty excited about it. You can also see the number of stocks over their 50-day is just pegged to the upside. Again, no more real room to go up there. And then as far as the 200-day, we've seen it up here before. Of course, it can go higher, but it seems like an area where we should be expecting some sort of pullback as well. Here, of course, the new lows, non-existent. That's fantastic. We've been seeing the new highs definitely increase like that, and that might have been a little bit of a peak. And then, we're starting to see things kind of taper off a bit. So not too much to interpret from there. All right, so then let's head over to the markets and take a look at a few things here. Let's see, we got the monthly and weekly, and if we go to the S&P, the first thing to pretty much note is that we are up here. Let's get that right there, pretty extended, up into the weekly third ATR, and we are pulling away from the 8 EMA, which is very extended up in there. That we should be prepared that the market is just super overbought. This thing has been doing exceedingly well for 2 months at this point, and basically it's just straight up since the beginning of November, and a lot of names have been participating with this, and I'll show you what that looks like too. And then, I think last week we got a liquidation break, and some names were able to continue to move up off of that, but again, we're just kind of reaching the limit. You can see the S&P just couldn't quite get much higher in through here, even though it did recover from that liquidation break. And what you can see is, this is really an important thing with the Moxie indicator, is you can see that price was trying to move up, but notice how every single day the Moxie indicator has been moving down. That is something to pay attention to, and it is telling you that this market is getting tired. And we can also see there is a negative divergence right there on the hourly time frame. So yeah, there's it's kind of running out of steam. And then the bigger picture, even in that, is that we've had this kind of negative divergence. So the overall situation, and there was the peak of the other one, and then you can see right there, just every single day, red, 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 and there's your Moxie price trigger to the downside. So yeah, I would say that this thing is pretty much exhausted and tapped out to the upside. And then, but if we do show, we can talk about the RSP, which is the equal weight. And what's amazing here is that it looks just as strong. Really, this is fantastic. And if we look at the QQQE versus the QQQ, this thing is also looking amazing. It's making new highs. I mean, it's doing great. And so there is basically no difference between the QQQE and the QQQ. So, everything's looking good. It's not just the Magnificent Seven. These things are really, really doing well. And then the other thing, again, remember, looking for a pullback. But what it's saying is that a lot of names are on board with what just happened with the market. Then if we look at the IWM, and we come over to here, let's look at the higher time frame chart, and we can see, you know, we are starting to have some pretty good moves on the IWM as well. So I was looking for back here to be the pullback. You know, I thought this was going to be the move. Here's a pullback. I thought it was going to settle in around here and then move up. We didn't get that. Instead, it went even further and definitely put some doubt out there and kind of made people wonder and, you know, how bearish are we going to get and all that kind of stuff. But then you'll notice it could not get lower, which is something to note. The fact that this turned around right at that spot, and not only that, it is blasting through there's some resistance that it previously had, and now it's up there. So again, even the IWM, even the small caps are on board and doing well. And you can see that even with this level here, the Moxie indicator has been moving up and up and up the entire time, and we do have a fresh Moxie price trigger right in through here. So yeah, just an absolutely great candle. You know, look at that thing on the monthly chart. Things are looking good for the IWM. Of course, at this point, I am looking for a pullback, but this rally has been fantastic and far-reaching. And at that point, I want to see what this pullback looks like into support, and then we'll see coming out after that. Now, another thing to look at as far as how this market has been working are the cryptos. I mean, the you know, Bitcoin miners, crypto, all that kind of stuff. If we do look at GBTC, just as an example, even Bitcoin has been, you know, Bitcoin's been doing great. This really says risk on, and you can see right there was a definitive breakout where this thing started to go. It came in, found some support, and then just went. Now, right now, this makes sense also that at some point we're going to run out of steam to the upside. I think we're there. I think these things are starting to pull back. You can see the Bitcoin miners today dropped pretty handily, and then yesterday also started to roll over. But look where it is. Look at Bitcoin right there, right in the middle of this big block of stuff. So it's going to have to digest. It's going to pull back. You know, I'm looking forward to this. I'm thrilled about a pullback because that means it's going to give us another opportunity, and I think this is about that time. Then if we do, let's see, look at GBTC. Oops, type that better. Got to zoom out at that point. And so this has been a real heck of a run. I mean, look at that thing, just up and up and up. And I'll tell you, a couple of times where I thought this thing was going to finally roll over, it didn't. It made the Moxie indicator a little bit challenging to read. I will definitely say that. You know, I kind of thought it was going to roll over right about here, and it did not. And that is when actually I think it seems everybody else finally got on board that this thing was going to go. And that is when the Bitcoin miners actually started to take off. Yeah, the Moxie indicator's been pretty messy in through here. I mean, you just look at the red, green, but you can see that there's a general trend to the downside, and this is looking a little bit tired, especially when you bring in or factor in the monthly and the weekly time frames. Now, I want to show you Riot because Riot gave a really, really good heads up and exit signal. So you can see, yes, big moves that we've had on here, but look at this divergence. Not only was price trying to move higher and the Moxie indicator lower, so that's our overall negative divergence. On this last move up, you can see price was trying to go higher, but notice the Moxie indicator went flat. That is a form of negative divergence. This is something I was teaching in the simpler trading options room and Moxie room earlier today. For those who own the Moxie indicator, this is something to be very aware of. And look right exactly where the Moxie price trigger fired, basically today, which was totally accurate. And then, so yeah, that's something to pay attention to. And then if we look at something like Mara, I mean, these things were just getting ridiculously high. And at some point, they were going to start to pull back. And, you know, certainly looks like today is that day. BTBT, you know, same thing, a pretty big move, finally pulling back. CIFR, you know, big move, finally pulling back. I do think these things are going to keep going, but we have to wait for them to, you know, cycle back down. You look at something like Cipher, this thing hasn't even gotten going. I mean, that is what's exciting for me, is that these things have pulled back into monthly and weekly support. They've had a pretty big move, giant volume coming into this, and they've only just begun. Can you imagine if Cipher comes all the way back to its IPO? Or if we look at HIVE, I mean, look at these things. They haven't even begun. Now, of course, you look at Mara, and yes, Mara has started taking off. But again, compared to where it has been, these things are just beginning. And something like Mara really just pulled back into weekly support with the Moxie indicator above zero and just started. So let's let this thing settle in. Yes, that was a big move. Yes, I want to see this thing pull back or flag or whatever in order to give us another opportunity. But if this thing wants to keep going, it's at $25 right now. What if it went to 60 or higher? And I don't know if it's going to happen, but these things look pretty good. And the amount of volume that's coming in here is telling me that I think that there will be more to come. We can also then look at XBI because this is another indication, Lab U if you want. Another indication I think that these things are starting to move to the upside. And so, yeah, we look at this and I'm thinking what I see is overall double bottom right there. And you can see that overall double bottom. There's your positive divergence on the Moxie indicator, and there's another fresh Moxie price trigger just like the IWM. Really, really big move. I would like to see a pullback at some point, but I'm wondering if this pullback is going to be the next thing that really gets this stuff going. And let me just look at XBI on the daily chart. And yeah, we talked about some hourly maneuvers, and we have a particular 5250 maneuver right here, so I would love to see a pullback and just what that looks like, and we need to confirm that the pullback actually comes into support, and then we can be back off to the races on some of this stuff. You know, just look at other things like NAIL. This is the leverage ETF for the home, housing industry. Wow. Huge move. And again, look at this thing. It just absolutely turned on a dime, just absolutely up like that. You can see for the hourly chart, there's your Moxie price trigger. The daily price trigger was a little bit later, and this thing just carried. Just did a really, really great job. So I don't know, something like, let's go back to NAIL, just to show you, there are some really, really good moves out here. And this is why I talk about I'm looking forward to the pullbacks, because you can see here, notice how even NAIL pulled back into its weekly 50 and then shot up. Now imagine if this is going to keep going. If the pullback, I don't know, is moderate and then keeps going, I think these things are looking pretty good. So yeah, fingers crossed. We'll have to see where NAIL can get going on this. And then if we talk about Open, if we can relate this to crypto and the fact that these things might just be beginning, they've already been repriced. All the froth came out of these things. You can see they've stopped going down. They are putting in higher lows, and they are starting to engage with their weekly charts and monthly charts. And can you imagine? We have Open basically at $5. Now maybe it pulls back to $3 or $4. Can you imagine if it gets up to $15 or $20? Yeah, that could be a fun time. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm seeing. I think that there are going to be some really big moves coming up for 2024. We just have to be patient. We have to, go with the flow. And right now, the flow is that the market needs to rest and pull back, and we just need to be prepared for that, and then see when the next rally is. All right, guys. Well, remember we do have some. We have some sales going on, and come over. It's I think new 24. Check everything out at our store at simplertrading.com and grab those discounts. All right, thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next year. Take care.